OpenAI just released GPTs, custom AI agents that you can build straight from ChatGPT. And the best part is that Sam Altman said that he will share the revenue from the most popular GPTs with us, the creators. So this is the best time to learn how to do this, because if you build a GPT that millions of people use, it can literally change your life. This is the page. When you click this button, you will see the GPTs page. Here, you will see your GPTs and then all the other GPTs, which at the moment are all made by OpenAI. I'm going to show you how to create your own GPT from scratch. You don't have to know any programming. It's very simple. So first step is click on Create a GPT. This will pop up the GPT builder. And here is where all the magic happens. So if you're a beginner, you're probably going to use the create button, because here you just type English and everything is done for you. But I'm going to also show you how to use the configure button, where we can go much more advanced and create some impressive GPTs. Now, a lot of people have noticed that GPTs are a very similar concept to character.ai, which is another AI tool that's super popular right now. As you can see, some of these characters have like 150 million chats, which is insane. Now, you probably don't want to chat to like anime characters or like man in the corner. You probably don't want to get advice from Billie Eilish, Ronaldo, or Joe Biden. Like, you definitely don't want to get advice from Joe Biden. What we're gonna do is try to create something actually useful. In ChatGPT, we have GPT-4 Turbo, the best and latest AI model, which obviously is better than character AI, so we can build something way more useful. We could build someone successful like Zach. The problem is that Zach is obviously super successful, but all the material he has on the internet is like, corporate speak, and he has to be careful what he says as a CEO. We want someone who actually gives good advice. Now, looking at this page, there are some potential candidates, Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, Jordan Peterson, but I'm gonna go with someone else. I'm gonna create a GPT of Robert Greene. And if you don't know who that is, he's an author, and the reason I'm going with Robert Greene is because all the content he has on the internet is actually practical advice. I think he's the perfect person to make a GPT from. And to do that, we can just start. I want to create a GPT that gives advice in the style of Robert Greene. On the left side, you have the GPT builder side, where you type how you want the GPT to look like. And on the right side, we have the preview. So here we can actually test the GPT. As you can see on the right, it got updated. So we have 4 starting prompts and the description. Now, what's really cool is that the GPT builder actually gives you suggestions on what you should do next. So now we have to create a name. Strategic Council. I mean, it's kind of generic, but I think I've got a better name. I'm going to name it Robot Greene. Because Robert Greene, Robot Greene. Anyway, it's actually generating the profile picture using DALL-E 3. So we'll see what it comes up with, and obviously if we don't like it, we can manually change it in the configure tab. So here we can manually change everything, and I'm gonna get to that soon. So it created this. It's not bad. I've definitely seen worse icons. But once the GPT store opens, the icon will matter a lot. So in order to stand out, you probably won't use a DALL-E 3 icon, but for this purpose, it's good. So we just say it's good. The GPT builder will tell us the next step. So even if you don't know anything, this will still provide you enough instructions to get a solid GPT going. But I would say there are 3 levels of GPTs actually. The first level is using the create tab. The second level, which is kind of intermediate, is using the configure tab, where you can go into much more detail and really fine tune every step of the way. And the third level is down here, add actions. This is where the best GPTs will be created. And that's because you can add a function where you can connect an outside API. Basically, you can do anything with this, like you connect Zapier, and that has integration with 6,000 apps. So if you want me to make a super advanced GPT tutorial for some like email management or Todoist or some Slack, I can definitely do that. So if you want to see that, let me know. Now, as you can see, the GPT builder gives us some really interesting questions. So what kind of advice should we focus on? Personal development, business strategy, or social interactions? All of these are obviously related to Robert Greene because, the GPT builder has some knowledge in its training data, obviously. I'm going to go with more like personal improvement, decision-making, life advice. Okay, so the GPT builder has finished, and we have another question. In what situations should Robot Greene ask for more information before giving advice? Ask for more information until you know which book and chapter from Robert Greene's works will be useful to the user. Now, soon we will hit a limit of the create tab, and that's why I called it the level 1 or the beginner level, because there's only so much you can do here. And the reason is that if it's easy, then you have no advantage. If it's easy to do, then others will copy it and your GPT will never get to the top of the GPT store. That's not what we want. We want to create GPTs that have the potential of being the most popular chats, like 40 million interactions, 70. These will be the numbers. And ChatGPT has 100 million weekly active users. So if you just capture 1% of those users with your GPT, I don't want to overhype it, but this is the time to get into GPTs and AI agents. So as you can see, it did that. GPT Builder usually takes like 5 to 7 seconds to execute the task. And what it does, it basically can change the name, update the profile picture, update the description, change the custom instructions, which is probably the most important point right now, but we're going to fine tune that in a bit. These conversation starters aren't as important. And of course, knowledge is, this is where the real magic happens, because you can give it custom knowledge, which isn't included in the training data, or maybe it is, but it's not as, detailed and as thorough. So now how do you envision Robert Greene's tone? I definitely think it should be like brutally honest and raw, as Robert Greene says. The responses should be bold, direct, and brutally honest. So as I said, you can definitely build a solid GPT just using the Create tab, because it's always going to ask you some question and a way to improve the GPT and change it slightly. But to really get the most value, we have to go to the Configure tab, because the Create tab is very limited and the custom instructions it writes, it's okay, but we can do much better. Let's actually take a look at it. These are the custom instructions of our GPT. If you mess this up, then the GPT will suck. So pay close attention, because this is super important. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter so that it's much easier to see. So I think the first part is good. We can definitely keep this. I haven't mentioned anything about that, so I would probably delete this. I would say this is a pretty solid start. Obviously, these custom instructions aren't anything special, but we're going to improve it. And to do that, I actually got the prompt from NASA. So this is a super long ChatGPT prompt directly from NASA. And as you can see, it's for the purpose of biomimicry design. And this is super long. Actually, I'm gonna see how many characters it is. 9.5 thousand characters. So it's almost 10,000 characters, 1,500 words. And we don't have to go that extreme. So to compare our prompt, it's not even 100 words. It's 58 words, 375 characters. So as you can see, we can do much better, and you don't have to go like NASA extreme. Like, this is kind of crazy. But one thing that we should implement is the step-by-step tree of thought reasoning. So as you can see, the NASA prompt has step 1, define, step 2, biologize, step 3, discover, step 4, abstract. So we're gonna do that, but for our own GPT. Right now, this is the header. So I would say this is like, personality. And it's good to use hashtags and mark down so that it's easier to see what is what. But for now, I'm gonna actually delete this, because before we change anything, I wanna test out how the GPT works. Let's say, what's a typical scenario? So maybe, asking for a promotion, right? We can actually see, based on the responses, what needs to be changed right here. Maybe we need to change the instructions, or maybe we need to add some knowledge or change the capabilities. Okay, so the first thing I'm noticing is that this response is quite verbose, meaning it's very long. In order to combat this, I'm gonna go back into the custom instructions, and I'm gonna simply ask, make your responses concise and clear. Do not waste the user's time. Hopefully the answer will be much shorter this time. Okay, so the answer is actually quite a bit shorter. The reason why I have to scroll is because I have, the UI zoomed in. That way you can see. Otherwise, I would have it at 100% and, you won't see anything in the video. As you can see, this is already really solid. We have some specific practical advice. For example, this is definitely something Robert Greene would say. Demonstrate your value through actions, not just words. However, one issue I have with this is it's still very vague in general. And for that, we have to go back into the Configure tab. All right, so let me show you the Configure tab and what every field does. So obviously you have the profile picture. Now, interesting thing is that when I tried using the photo of Robert Greene, the face, it didn't really work. Now, it did update it right here and even here. But when I saved it, it went back to the original icon, the default icon, which is weird. So I think OpenAI is actively blocking you from using people's faces. Now, obviously you set the name, so I do Robert Greene. Description: a GPT agent that has the knowledge of Robert Greene. Instructions: so this is the system message or custom instructions. Conversation starters: so obviously it's on the right, so this is it. Basically you just click it. Even when you load up ChatGPT, this is basically, you know, the prompts that give inspiration to the user. That way you avoid the blank page problem of being stuck and not knowing what to do. But actually what I've seen on Twitter some people do is using these to give info to the user about the GPT. This is a great way to actually tell the users more about the GPT and how they should use it. So we're gonna set those up. Knowledge, this is super important. And for this case, what we can actually do is we can give it Robert Greene's books. That way it's not just using just the training data, which is very limited capabilities. These are, you know, before basically the plugins, the main OpenAI plugins. I recommend turning off web browsing, and the reason is because web browsing is super slow. DALL-E image generation, for this case where we have an agent of Robert Greene, we don't need DALL-E. But we're gonna keep code interpreter. Why? Well, because we need it to go through the books. And actions. We're gonna leave that empty for now because for this use case, we don't need any outside APIs. All right, so let's focus on knowledge because that's where we can upload the PDFs, and this is what will take the GPT to the next level. Now, you have to be careful because obviously this is copyrighted material, but I think if you're using it for yourself, you should be fine. But what's interesting is that on the OpenAI Dev Day, Sam Altman himself actually said that they are announcing a copyright shield. Copyright shield means that we will step in and defend our customers and pay the costs incurred if you face legal claims for copyright infringement. Now, I don't know if that covers the actual, GPT agents. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Again, if you're using it just for yourself, you should be fine. Now, normally you would upload the files through the upload files button, obviously, but today OpenAI has been having some major outages, as you can see, kind of crazy. So this button still doesn't work. I'm clicking it, it does nothing. So I'm actually gonna try just dragging in the PDFs, add this file into the knowledge of Robert Greene. Okay, this is promising. Okay, behavior updated. Let's see, configure. All right, beautiful. So that's great because we can actually, upload it right here. So what I did is I uploaded one book. Let's do 4 more. Add these 4 books as well. Okay, so if we go into configure, we can see that 5 PDFs have been attached. Now, I don't know what's happening with the icon, so I'm going to try refreshing. Okay, no matter what I try, I keep getting errors, even though I waited like 5 hours since the last outage. I really want to get this video out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would write the instructions, because that's like the last missing piece. Now, obviously, I have no clue whether I can actually get it up and running, but let's look at the instructions and how we can actually make it use the custom knowledge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new header. Again, like I'm getting errors left and right. This is kind of crazy, actually. The reason we do step-by-step reasoning is because if you don't do it and just, try to throw it everything at once, the likelihood of something going wrong is super high. So let's get started. Analyze the user's requests and choose the 2 books from Robert Greene that most relate to that request. Step 2, we're going to actually use code interpreter to inspect the PDFs of those 2 books and look for specific chapters related to the prompt. Open the PDF files of those 2 books and look for 3 specific chapters from each book. Step 3, read those chapters and look for parts that are directly relevant. Step 4, using those parts, create response in the style of Robert Greene. Make sure to reference which chapters from which books you used. Okay, so again, we're getting errors left and right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this custom instructions and I'm going to include them in the description. Okay, so let's actually see if OpenAI lets us use this. I'm going to do the same prompt from before. I want to ask my boss for a raise. What should I do? Okay, so it seems like it is working actually. It linked 2 books and then some potential chapters, and now it's searching through those books. Come on, please no more errors. I don't want to get my hopes up, but we're almost there. And again, we're getting an error. So it seems like OpenAI is really not having the best day today. Again, dude, this is crazy. I waited 5 hours. Like, this is when this happened, when I was recording. Then, they took like 2 hours to fix it. And now it was fixed. And I hit recording again. And we have another major outage. So obviously this is outside of my control. So let's summarize it. So profile picture, not that important, but don't use the default DALL-E ones because you want to stand out in the marketplace. Name, use something creative but simple. Description, this probably doesn't influence the GPT whatsoever. Instructions, this is probably the most important part together with the knowledge. But if you mess up the instructions or if you don't spend enough time writing proper custom instructions, like, you're not gonna have any competitive advantage. And this is why prompt engineering, like, it pays to learn prompt engineering so much, because most people have no time. Like 99% of ChatGPT users don't have the time or the skill to write custom instructions like this, even though this isn't anything impressive. Like, we can just compare it to the NASA prompt. Like, this is crazy, like almost 10,000 characters. This, like, we can see, this is only 1,300, so this is like nothing, but still 98% of users could not write this. Unfortunately, right now we can't really experiment because we are having another major outage. Conversation starters, obviously these aren't that useful. Then we have knowledge. Here you can upload basically anything. Like, it can be PDF files, it can be CSV files, it can be Excel, TXT files, Word documents, or maybe if you're building some very niche programming assistant, let's say for some super, obscure language that isn't in the training data, or at least there isn't much of it, you can put the documentation here, and then capabilities, obviously you can check these 3 boxes. That's quite explanatory depending on what your GPT does. So this is all you need to create an intermediate level GPT. So if you want me to go into actions and explain the functions and how to link outside APIs and create really like exceptional advanced GPTs, I'll definitely do that. So let me know in the comments and subscribe, because if this video gets a lot of people subscribing, that's the best way to tell me that you want to see more.